Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle, the podcast for high performers who've gone all in, but still feeling a little stuck. I'm your host, Rob Tracz, coach, speaker, and creator of the Prime Performance Process. If you're a solopreneur, small business owner, or just launched your side hustle and you're tired of grinding with no momentum, this is for you. Every week, we bring you guests that have broke the code, generated momentum, and finally got unstuck. And we're diving into their stories, their struggles, and their secrets to generating massive momentum in both their personal and professional lives. We don't do fluff here. We do frameworks, real talk, and share the kind of insights that get you unstuck for good. Welcome, and let's get rolling. But before we dive in, I gotta remind you, if you're overwhelmed, spinning your wheels, or just tired of hustling without the results, it's time for a Prime Performance Strategy session. In this free call, we'll zoom out on your life and business, identify the real reason you're feeling stuck, and build a game plan to help you reclaim your confidence, energy, and gain some clarity so you can get back to doing what you set out to do. Lead, grow, and thrive. This isn't surface level coaching. It's a system built on resilience, intentionality, clarity, and alignment. So head over to survivingthesidehustle.com/free call to grab your spot today. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Let's get going and help you look good, feel good, and do great things. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. I'm super excited to dive into today's conversation because we've got Bob Martin, and he's a recovering lawyer, professor of wellness, meditation teacher, and literary maverick. Bob's got a remarkable story. His journey spans from being a high-powered criminal trial lawyer during Miami's infamous cocaine cowboy era, all the way to a mindfulness coordinator, certified meditation mentor, and published author. He pulls from a lot of different things and blends together brain science and psychology into practical lessons for breaking free from limiting beliefs. His story of transformation offers powerful insights into living a mindful life. Bob, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to kind of dive in. How are you doing?
Doing real good. Along with all of that wonderful introduction, most important thing, 75 and happy.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what a lot of people are wishing and hoping to get to is happy and perfectly mindfulness and a lot of great stuff, great people around. So I got to ask you right off the bat, though, because it's pretty interesting. I'm dying to hear about your story, your journey. What brought you from the cocaine cowboy to creating meditation classes and mindful meetups?
You know, the answer to that question is both simple and common, and it's also complicated and uncommon in its own way. It's simple and common because we often make major shifts in our perspective on living and what we do and what we feel our purpose and meaning is when we start to bottom out. That happens for so many people. You know, you just you get to a place in your life where just things are not working on some level. For me, you know, things were working professionally. I mean, I was making money as a lawyer, hands over foot, and I had my house paid off by the time I was 32 years old. So, I mean, I was doing hot, but I was not doing so well on the home front. I was working my butt off and I was partying my butt off because my clients, again, remember those words you said, the cocaine cowboy days, right? So those were the days of that movie Scarface. That was the days of people walking into banks with duffels of money to have it laundered. That was the days that crack cocaine came in. It was all that stuff. And I was wrapped up right in the middle of it. And let's just say that my behaviors were a little bit excessive. I'd come home 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, get up and leave around 4 or 5 in the morning, mostly because I didn't prepare for the day's work at night while I was out partying. I would come home and I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go in the office to get my stuff together for the day. And how I held it together, I'm still not sure, but I did. And so I was hurting spiritually and I was hurting psychologically, but not professionally. And I thought I was arrogant. I don't think you would have liked to know me then. And I was seeing a therapist, like so many do. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Just before I get there, just let me say that these folks that I was hanging out with, it was actually, the southern branch of the Gambino mob. And at that level in Miami in those days, the Italians were talking to the Colombians, we're talking to the Cubans, we're talking to the Haitians, and there was New York. And the drug routes were different, and everybody had to communicate to stay off of each other's territory. And I was kind of a mediator, go between in that milieu, walking on what's that song though? Walking on Broken Glass. So anyway, I'm seeing the therapist, and not only am I making money hands over foot, I'm also spending it hands over foot. There's all these schemes that are going on in Miami, all these ideas. All these hotels are being built. People are buying up huge tracts of land and putting in developments and the like. So there's all these people coming. If you have money, they all come to you. They say, "Hey, you want to invest in this? You want to invest in that?" And so, I think that, I can't do no wrong. So, yeah, I'll invest in this and that goes bust and this goes bust. So I got to a point where I would actually have to refinance my house.
Huh.
And I didn't want to do that. I felt like that was like one bridge too far. And so I'm seeing a therapist and I asked him, should I do it? Should I refinance my house? And he goes, I figured what he would say was something like therapists always say, "Well, Bob, how do you feel about that? You think that you ought to refinance your house." But he didn't. He actually picked up 3 coins. He shook them in his hand. He dropped them on the table. He started adding up numbers, writing little symbols on a piece of paper and calculating some stuff. Finally, he wound up with 6 lines and he calculated that out to be a number. And he turned behind him and got this big book. And he turned to that chapter number and he put it down, he turned it around and he showed it to me. And the name of the chapter was Retreat.
Hmm.
I did not understand what was going on. I thought that my therapist had become some kind of woo-woo, tree hugging shaman, tarot
Yeah.
card reader or something. And I cursed him out and walked out. But there was something that was just undeniable about it because the advice was completely right. That's what I needed to do. So I started to back away from some of my excessive behaviors and pull it back together and come home earlier and stay later and take care of my stuff and pay off my debts. As I'm doing that, though, I'm wondering, what was that all about? What was that all? I go back to him and say, "What was that?" And he says, "Well, Bob, that was something called the I Ching, which is spelled I Ching and Ching. Ching in Chinese means a classical book, and I means changes. So this is the classical book of changes. And just to help your audience understand, I know that some of those that are hearing, they can't see this, but we all know what the yin yang symbol is. What
Yeah.
most people don't know is that in yin is the dot of yang, and in yang is the dot of yin. But it's not a dot; it's a seed, and the seed will grow and it will take over. And so yin becomes yang and yang becomes yin. And that is just the symbol of the way the universe works. That day becomes night, night becomes day, winter becomes summer. But in human dynamics, what most people don't apply it to is that good times and bad times also cycle. And sometimes you're in a place where everybody's listening to you and everything you say is taken like gold. And there are other times that nobody wants to listen to you and nothing you say is worth anything. And it feels like you're walking in mud. And these times, these energies, they cycle around. So if today nobody wants to listen to you, the trick is not to fight what the energy is, not to fight the flow, but just, this isn't the time to talk. Better I should think about what I want to say and perhaps refine it and wait, because they will eventually come and say, "Bob, what was that you wanted to say?" and then you'll be ready.
Mm.
All of that yin yang stuff is all about learning how to live life effectively and efficiently. How did I learn it?
Yeah, that was what I was just going to ask you.
So it turns out that my therapist was the English language editor for a 72nd generation Taoist Grand Master from the Shaolin Temple. So think about that, 72 generations of passing wisdom down from father to son. That's about 1,400 years. This guy came to Miami, and when I met him, it was like unworthy. He just had that presence. He was 68 when I met him. He just celebrated his 100th birthday. He was just amazing. And he was the ultimate wisdom. Anything you asked him was something that changed your perspective on life. And that process of learning the qualities of yin and yang and feeling where on the cycle you are at any particular moment, and then aligning yourself with that so that you're not fighting the energy, but aligning with it is the study of the Tao, the study of Taoism. And I studied that underneath him for 8 years. And he taught me a practice which anybody can do. I could teach it in 10 minutes. And if you do it every day, you'll come to understand the 64 different slices of the cycle and the 6 sub slices of the 64 slices. But you don't learn that overnight. You practice every day, and today you learn a little bit, and tomorrow you learn a little bit, and then, over time, you start to embody it and get
Mm.
to feel the energy instead of like trying to figure it out.
Wow. So I got to ask you. So you went back to your therapist and you were asking about this, and then what really inspired you to learn more about this? Because he just kind of showed this to you. You were kind of freaked out, it sounds like, at first, and then you kind of made the decision to start changing some things. And then what drew you back to, obviously, other than just being curious about what it was that he showed you, but then what drove you to keep learning more about this is, I guess, is what I'm asking.
When you are on some level, I know that I am sinking, but I'm in denial of it. I'm not sinking. I'm doing well. I'm doing great. I'm smart. I'm brilliant. I'm the best. I'm top lawyer. I'm blah, blah, blah. And somebody comes up and literally slaps you, not literally, figuratively slaps you in the face really hard. And he goes, you need to rethink that. You got to be curious. And they're right. And they're right. Then you say, wow, that took a lot of, excuse my language, that took a lot of balls. And you want to, so you go back, you say, what was that all about? And then you meet somebody who has a presence. I'll give you a couple of examples. This was a guy that watched movies, and when it came to an ending that he liked, he would get up and leave. This is a guy who, when we played hide and seek, you could never find him. This is a guy, and I don't reveal this to too many people. This is a guy who was able to direct his own personal chemistry and body energy in such a way that simply by putting his hand on my shoulder, I could compress a ball that I could barely push in, just an invisible ball of energy, just by touching my shoulder. These are things that, sound very woo-wee, but I experienced them. And, we asked Master Me once, why do they call you Master? And he said, because I've mastered life. Okay, well, what does that mean, to master life? And he said, when you can interfere with the natural rhythm of things the least and expend the least amount of energy and yet acquire the desired result, you have begun to master life. Best example, of that is my wife is a real type A personality. She's always wants to do things, and she has her list and her to-dos, and she wants to get them done and off her desk. And it doesn't matter where or when or how. This is something that I have to do. I want to get it done, period. And I, am a Taoist. So I feel like when it's the right time to do it, and it drives her nuts.
Yeah,
because
imagine.
often she wants me to go do all this work. And I just say, I don't feel like I don't have a reason not to do it now. I just don't think it's the right time. And then something happens in the next day, which makes all that work unnecessary. Something else resolved that resolved it totally without my involvement. It just the universe, not the universe, but it wasn't right. There were still things in motion, so it wasn't right to pluck. And I just sense it wasn't right to pluck. You should be, if you can live life by plucking things instead of spending a lot of time pushing them, it's a lot easier. And you have to have a sense for, ripeness. Things need to be right. Master Me once said, if you try to get an apple off a tree before it's ready, you're going to work hard and pull and twist and jerk and bend and get it off, and it's sour. If you wait too long, it drops and rots. But if you pluck it just right, it comes off easy and it's sweet.
I love that.
Now, if we can learn how to pluck things in life and have the patience to allow everything that needs to happen so that your input is the least, and you allow all of the natural flow to occur, and then, now this requires some wisdom. Somebody once asked me, well, are you saying then that I mentioned, like when I mentioned my word here, retreat. Well, I don't think retreating is right, because if you retreat, then you're giving up, this person said. And I said, well, if you retreat to the point where you have to give up, you missed the right time to retreat. I'm sorry. If you retreat at the wrong time, you'll be destroyed. If you had retreated earlier, you could have regrouped and come back. So you missed the right time to retreat. Timing is everything.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm thinking too, because I feel like retreat has multiple meanings too. Like I'm thinking in terms of like wellness retreats and stuff. You intentional to kind of slow things down, to kind of recharge and then come back, because like you usually return when you go on a retreat. You usually come back to work and you usually have a little more energy and motivation and kind of attack things on a different degree of energy and level. So I'm thinking about that. So there's more than just that, like giving up kind of sense
Right.
to the word itself.
Right. Right. I mean, there may be a time to give up as well. If you give up too early, then you've lost opportunities. If you give up too late, then you'll suffer too much.
Yeah.
That finding the time is just something that comes with a lot of experimentation, a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad moods, and we learn as we go.
Yo, what's up? Sorry for interrupting. It's me, Rob. If you've been listening and thinking, man, I just know I'm capable of so much more, but something's just really not clicking, well, I've got something for you. It's called the Prime Performance Personality Quiz. And in just a few minutes, you'll uncover what's actually slowing you down. So whether it's a mindset block, energy drain, or a lack of clarity, this quiz is going to give you specific insights to help you build momentum again. Again, this quiz is free, fast, and honestly, freakishly accurate. So take it now over at survivingthesidehustle.com/quiz and stop spinning, start winning today. Yeah. I was just having a conversation earlier today, actually, with one of my clients, and she's got a young daughter who's in high school, and she's a volleyball player. And the girl comes home and she's complaining that her boss, her coach, is being super, I guess, rude, kind of bullying, not the greatest attitude. So she wants to quit. And then her mom is kind of okaying with it, saying like, yeah, I agree that the coach isn't the greatest. But then her dad is saying, hey, stick it out for at least 2 weeks, see if things change, see if the moods change and whatnot. And then at least you're also developing an understanding to be able to identify someone who's being rude and bullying. And then you're also going to develop a little bit of thicker skin. And then if it's not the right fit, then it is time to move on and leave. And then we were talking about, okay, how do you identify when it is the right time? to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because if it's such a rough situation, you don't want to sit in there. You don't want to be the apple on the ground rotting to the ground. And you also don't want to pluck out too soon without really giving enough time for it to ripen up. So how do you know when it is the right time to retreat or withdraw or to course correct?
Yeah, that's just, that's a great question. That is ultimately the question. That is ultimately the question, because if she leaves too early, she's going to carry with her the scar of having given up without having lasted if she had followed her father's advice. If she stays too long, she will have wasted time and perhaps have other scars that she has to deal with from the bullying that the guy does. So yeah, how do you determine what's right? Well, it's a question of wisdom, and the more experiences that you have, of course, the more accurate you're going to be, and the more that you learn from other people that have walked the path. The more that you engage, talk to people, learn about their experience, you read books, you read other people's experiences, and you take all that in, you develop an awareness. See, just to answer that question, the study of the I Ching, can we get into that for a minute? Because I think this is something that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I would love to.
There are books that you can get easily about that. So the I Ching has 64 basic slices of the cycle of timing. There's a time to retreat. There's a time to stand still. There's a time to punch through. There's a time to advance. There's a time for calculated waiting. There's a time for prosperity. There's a time for paucity. There's a time to withdraw. There's a time to spend. There's a time to save. There are all these 64 names. And the way that you practice and learn this is every morning or whenever you're going to dedicate 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to the practice, you take 3 coins and you shake them in your hand and you drop them. And tails has a value of 3 and heads has a value of 2. And so if you get 3 threes, that's 9. Or if you get 3 twos, it's 6. So it can only be 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. And each one of those numbers has a line. It's either a line or a broken line or a line with a dot or a broken line with a dot. Anyway, you create this little what we call a hexagram. It's little 6 lines. You throw the coins 3 times and you put those 6 lines together. And then there's a chart for those particular 6 lines. They can come together in 64 different ways. And that will tell you the number of the chapter that you want to read. If you get a 9 or a 6, then you make a second set of 6 lines, changing the straight line to a broken line or the broken line to a straight line. And so the connection between the first 6 and the second 6 is the specific energy that's working on the situation. So you might get a hexagram that reads progress. Here are a couple of specific little pieces of advice. And then prosperity might be the second one. Okay? And the 2 pieces of advice might be a warning. If you don't take care of something, you're not going to get this. And what the relationship is between the first one and the second one and these and that, that's up for you to decide. Now, it sounds kind of woo-y, and it sounds like it's a talisman. It sounds like it's a fortune teller or something like that, but it is not. What it is before you throw the coins, you ask a question. And the question always has to start with, what do I need to know about? You can't ask, am I going to get the job? Because it'll just come back and tell you that you're arrogant or something like that. Wrong question. You can't ask a yes or no question. You can only ask, what do I need to know about the interview I'm going to have today? What do I need to know about the day? Whatever it is. And then you throw these coins. And Carl Jung was fascinated by the I Ching, the famed Austrian psychologist, and he analyzed it and wrote a number of treatises about it. And his take on it, and I believe it is correct, is that when you ask the question, what do I need to know about today's interview? Your innate intelligence already knows the answer. If you stop and really think about it, you already know the answer to that question. It's just that your nervousness and narratives and everything else is going in your head and kind of blocks it from you. It's an intuitive answer. You know it intuitively, not rationally. Some questions you just have to feel they're right. And so the left side of our brain is the intuitive intelligence that we have. The right side is the rational intelligence. And when you read with that question in mind, it is as if your eyes picks out the words that allows your intuitive intelligence, which does not work with words, put together and cobble together an answer in words, and then it pipes it over to the rational side of your brain so that the answer that you already know from your authentic self is able to surface into rational thought so that you can make it useful. So it acts as a bridge between your intuition and your rationality, and it helps you discover what you already know to be true. Which, gets into a whole podcast about what is our authentic selves and, all the narratives and the culturalization and the socialization and all the crap that the world puts on top of us. But this lets you get down to what you know to be true and get past all that. It was written, it's kind of horoscopy in its language, kind of generalized, but everything that's in it is true. I mean, if it tells you that nobody's listening to you, you should shut up. I mean, that's just true. So all the wisdom in it is true, and it's up for you to cobble together an answer to your question. But if you ask it that question every day, what do I need to know for today? And it gives you something and you go, what the? I don't get that. But you carry it during the day, you go, that's what it was talking about. Now, this is all you.
Yeah.
This is all, you're doing it all. This is just kind of a mechanism of white wisdom that you can select little pieces of to put together stuff that you already know is true.
Yeah, I like it. So I'm kind of understanding is whenever I have a problem or I'm facing a new situation with something and I don't really know how to handle it, I usually call up one of my mentors and he shares a different perspective. And then at the end, when I kind of look at it from what he's saying, I'm like, oh, yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense. So what I'm understanding is like, you are kind of telling yourself for a different perspective and then it gives it to you and then you kind of let it kind of come through and it works itself into your consciousness. So you kind of like ask your unconscious self, like, okay, well, what is this? How do I actually feeling this? And then as it kind of works through with little cues, then you pull out like, okay, yeah, that's really, really what I'm saying.
And you know what? It feels when you do it and you practice it, it feels exactly like what you do. It feels like you have asked a mentor and have gotten back a different perspective that makes you try to figure out what the F are they saying and why should I think that way? And then now I get it.
So I have a tough question for you here.
Okay.
It might be a
I'll get
curveball.
tough. I'll get tough.
Okay, perfect. Do you feel that this practice is maybe having a harder time nowadays because I feel like a lot of individuals or just a lot of like our society really doesn't understand themselves. So we don't really have that same intuition that I feel like we might have back in the day because we're now kind of falling into this trap of like social media, people telling us what we should be thinking. And we don't really get to experience a lot of life ourselves because we're so stuck on our phones and watching other people experience life. Do you see that making it becoming harder to kind of tap into our own intuition, maybe with younger clients or individuals you might be working with?
I see that there would be more resistance to it because I believe that on some level, everyone knows what you just said, even when it applies to themselves. In other words, you're saying, I teach law class on college. I also teach meditation at a college level. So I see students all the time and they are completely aware that they don't do the kind of tough research work that people did when I was in college. They can ask Google now, they know this, and they also have lost the sense of curiosity. But on some level, they know that they have lost a sense of curiosity. And so in defending that, they may be more resistant to taking it on. But to answer the question of whether the practice would be more difficult, the answer, I'll give you two, a practical answer and a theoretical answer. The practical answer is once a year on the campus, we have a spiritual conference from about 15 colleges around. All the religion students and spirituality oriented folks, they all come to our campus and have a 3-day conference. And I always teach a class on the I Ching at that conference. And every time I teach a class, it knocks everybody over. And I still get letters from people who are now practicing it. So those people that were inclined to be curious about it, that would naturally select my breakout room as opposed to some other breakout room, if they were curious and wanted to know and were open to it, it smacks them in the face and they go, this is fantastic. Okay? But if they're resistant to it, I would say no. So that's the practical answer. We would have to talk kind of cosmology here. Do we believe that there is some universal connective energetic tissue that we know that knowledge and data, travels on energy? We know it from, we turn a computer off and there's no more data, right? There's energy all through the universe. So is there some transmission of data that occurs in the universe? And I'm more and more inclined to believe that there is. That, they have done some experiments about our heart energy, and they found that the heart actually has a language and is a thinking organism, and it can actually move a random number generator. It's generating ones and zeros randomly. With the energy of your heart, you can actually cause that machine to shift. They also have developed a way of identifying the particular sine and cosine and wavelengths of your particular heart and can read it 14 feet out from your body. So that means when you're sitting in a room with 8 people, you're all bathed in each other's heart energy. Why would we think that data wouldn't travel on that energy? And if it travels on that energy, why would we think it doesn't travel on gravity? Now, I'm getting a little bit far out here, but the more and more I do this work and the more I look at the human condition, the more I feel like there is some kind of not energetic, intelligent, energetic connection. And I'm not going so far as to call it divine or anything else. It's above my pay grade. But if that is the case, then whatever a person has learned or not learned or been socialized or not socialized, they can tap into that energy. And I believe that that energy is an energy that is good. I believe that that is the energy that children intuitively feel. You don't see racism and you don't see sexism. Well, you might see a little sexism among little boys and girls, but you don't see all of that, the sense of connection. So my answer to you would be, I guess it depends on your cosmology. If you think that we're all individual sacks of skin and it's completely self-contained, then I would say that your hypothesis might be right. If we're connected in some grander way, then I have hope.
Well, I like to be on the side of hope there. I think it's interesting, and I don't know exactly what I believe, but similar. I feel like there's something that has us connected, and there's energy and stuff. It's still, I feel like there's a lot of research and new findings are constantly coming out. So I'm in the hopeful world of like, yeah, I think there is stuff like that. So, and so you say you teach these campus 3-day conferences essentially once a school year, or is it like once a semester kind of thing?
Well,
Or
I mean, I'm just do a couple of breakout rooms at the
Mhm.
conference every year, but I
Okay.
teach meditation as a 4-credit course on campus.
Mm. And I know you also do like a monthly mindful meetup.
Hmm.
Is that with the campus or is that on your
No, no,
own
that's
or
that's on my own. I have private students, who I teach online, and because there's a digital infrastructure that was created at Duke University that allows me to basically stay in communication with my students every single day for 5 weeks. And it's very different from any other way of teaching. And so I like for my students to drop in and for other people to drop in. It's just a monthly meetup where people can ask questions about mindfulness, or I might on the 9th, it's going to be on the 9th of this month. There's a certain meditation called Tonglen, Tonglen. Tonglen is a method of cultivating compassion and a sense of healing, either for yourself or others. So we're going to practice that, and then we're going to have questions and answers. 1 hour. It's free. Drop in, stay, talk, ask, don't ask, doesn't matter. So there's that.
nice? And so you run those monthly.
Monthly, second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern, and you can register on my website.
Okay, and what is your website, by the
A
way?
wiseandhappylife.com.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, so there you go. If you're listening to this, make sure you go check that out, register. You said it was free. So
Free.
if you're
Yeah,
finding anything interested in this conversation, make sure you definitely dive into that. But Bob, before we kind of like wrap things up, I'm curious because you're teaching in university, you've got a very interesting background. You're teaching privately with these meetups and things like that. When you yourself are looking ahead, what is the bigger vision that really excites you about the impact that you're creating or trying to make here?
say two things. The question that I wake up with every morning is, have I done enough? So I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question. I just know that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to ask myself, have I done enough, and whatever I can do. And then Jimmy Carter once said something that really grabbed me. He said, my faith, for him, it was my faith compels me to do whatever I can for whoever I can for however long that I can. And that's what drives me forward. And so where it's going to take me, I don't have a clue.
I love it. I love just following it and riding the wave, energy, motion, feeling, people. I love that. That's pretty awesome. So again, so are you, before we kind of wrap things up, are you open to taking on new people if for
Absolutely.
one-on-ones?
Absolutely. In fact, we just kind of talk about, the side hustle. That's my side hustle because I've retired 4 times, I think. But that is my side hustle, is teaching meditation online. And I got to tell you, for a number, it's a pretty high, price point, $250 for a group class, 500 almost for a private 5-week course. So I've been working at it for a couple of years, and I'm getting some results that are okay, but it's not anything where I want to go. So I just restructured it. So now I'm going to start off by anybody that's interested for $15 can get a phone call with me, and I'll stay with them and answer any questions they have. And if they like that, then they can do a test course for 1 week for $95. And that's applicable to the full tuition if they want to go for the higher 5-week course. So I'm trying to figure out, we're always trying to figure out ways to restructure the presentation so that it works for people. And I just put that together 2 weeks ago, and I'm already starting to see things, accelerate. So, how to survive the side hustle,
Yeah.
as long
Keep
as it can
rolling
pay
and
for
changing.
itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I love that restructuring, making it more available to more people. And so that's awesome too. So if anybody here is listening and you want to kind of test it out and kind of dive into it, you've got that low cost call to answer any questions that you might have, and then the opportunity to really kind of test it out for the first week or so. So that's pretty awesome value, especially to tap into somebody with so much knowledge and wisdom as yourself. You're teaching in university, you're doing a lot of other things, and that's a really awesome opportunity for people to dive into. So if you're interested, someone's looking to book one of those calls, you can find that on your website also, or is there
Yep.
some other way of booking that? Okay. And the website again was wiseandhappylife.com. All right. Awesome. Well, Bob, this has been awesome. I love kind of diving into this stuff. It's exciting. It's cool. It's a different way of thinking, and it's just a approach of looking at thinking in a whole nother lens too. And that's what I'm really all about. Really learning how to reflect more consciously and pay attention to yourselves and ourselves in life and the different roles that we play in community and everybody else's lives too. So this is awesome. A great time to kind of dive in. So I really appreciate you taking the time today, Bob.
And I can't thank you enough. I mean, the work that you do to put together a podcast, like people like me come on and say our thing, is just an incredible service. So thank you for your service.
Of course, of course. Well, guys, if you're listening and you're loving all this stuff, make sure you go check it out. happylife.com, correct?
Right.
happylife.com. Awesome. Well, again, Bob, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I love this and would love to have you on a show again in the future if you're open to it. So
I'd love to.
appreciate you and appreciate this episode.
Let's do it again, and I'll actually do an I Ching practice.
Yeah, let's do it.
You
Yeah,
ask a
I'm down for
question,
that.
we'll get an answer and see where that goes.
Sweet. Yeah, I'd be down for that. That'd be cool.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. And until next time, guys, peace, 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 peace. And that's it for this episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If you found this valuable, the best way to support the show is to rate and review on Apple or Spotify. It helps get the show in front of more driven individuals just like you, and helps them discover the tools to get unstuck, break through burnout, and build something real. And you can always connect deeper with me, our guests, or grab free resources at survivingthesidehustle.com/Rob. Whether it's a strategy call, the Prime Performance Personality Quiz, some of our products, or just to check out our free content library. Connect with us over at survivingthesidehustle.com/Rob. And hey, remember this, you weren't meant to just grind. You were built to grow. So stay conscious, stay committed, and keep showing up. Peace, guys.